Good morning. This is the inaugural edition of Starting Point, Essential Network's new morning newsletter. Trust in the media is at an all-time low. It's so hard to follow along with the news cycle nowadays, especially in the populous smartphone, AI, and digital eras. We want to do something about it. Starting Point, this new morning newsletter from Essential Network will inform you and give you something to smile at amidst our chaotic and rapidly changing world. Without further ado, here's what you need to know on this Monday, February 2nd. First up, the 68th Grammy Awards. At the Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles, the 68th Grammy Awards, music's biggest night, took place on Sunday night with massive milestones, emotional speeches, and artists using the platform to protest U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Among the winners, Bad Bunny, who will perform the Super Bowl halftime show next Sunday, made history as the first artist to win Album of the Year for a primarily Spanish-language album, Debí Tirar Más Fotos. Kendrick Lamar dominated this year's ceremony with 5 wins, including Record of the Year for Luther with SZA and Best Rap Album for GNX, becoming the most awarded rapper in Grammys history. Billie Eilish won Song of the Year for Wildflower. Olivia Dean won Best New Artist. Lola Young won Best Pop Solo Performance for her hit song Bessie. In addition, Lady Gaga returned to the Grammy stage to perform a rock version of her song Abracadabra. The ceremony also had powerhouse performances for Bruno Mars and Rosé, Sabrina Carpenter, and Justin Bieber. Number 2. More Epstein files released. The U.S. Department of Justice dropped its largest batch of Epstein files last Friday, over 3 million pages of documents along with more than 2,000 plus videos and 108,000 images. The release includes billionaire and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's communications with powerful figures, President Donald Trump, Elon Musk, former President Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, and others, emails from accounts linked to Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Sarah Ferguson, and details on his prison time and death. Justice Department officials, including Deputy U.S. Attorney General Todd Blanche, emphasized no new criminal charges are expected from the material, citing insufficient prosecutable evidence despite horrible photographs and troubling correspondence. This appears to be the final major dump under the law, though redactions remain and some lawmakers are pushing for more unredacted access. Scrutiny and calls for more transparency continue. Number 3. A rapidly intensifying bomb cyclone hammered the Carolinas, Georgia, and beyond over the weekend, marking the second major winter event in weeks. North Carolina was hit the hardest with historic snowfall in places like Charlotte and the eastern part of the state. Snowfall totals in some areas were the heaviest in decades. Heavy accumulations caused major travel disruptions, road closures, and at least 2 storm-related deaths. In South Carolina and Georgia, significant snow in areas not used to it, like the Charleston and Atlanta areas, occurred. The snow led to widespread cancellations and treacherous conditions. And in Florida, unprecedented cold surged south. Orlando hit 24 degrees while Miami had lows in the mid-30s. Warnings for freezing temperatures, ice, and literally falling iguanas were also omnipresent in the state. Number 4. Kevin Warsh has been tapped for Fed chair. President Donald Trump has nominated Kevin Warsh as the 17th chairman of the Federal Reserve. A former Fed governor under Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama, he is the youngest person ever to serve on the Fed board. Warsh is in favor of lower interest rates. A Stanford and Harvard law alum, ex-Morgan Stanley executive, and former economic advisor to President George W. Bush, he is currently a Hoover Institution fellow and Stanford University lecturer. His nomination awaits U.S. Senate confirmation. And finally, number 5, former CNN anchor, independent journalist, and left-wing political commentator Don Lemon was arrested early Friday morning Eastern Time by federal agents in Los Angeles. This occurred while he was covering the Grammy Awards. The arrest stems from his involvement in covering and, according to prosecutors, participating in an anti-ICE protest that disrupted a church service on January 18, 2026 at City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. The church reportedly has a pastor who is a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement official. Lemon and others, including fellow journalist Georgia Fort, were indicted by a federal grand jury in Minnesota. Charges include conspiracy against rights and interfering with the exercise of religious freedom at a place of worship. Supporters of the administration view it as accountability for interfering with religious freedom, while critics see it as retaliation against the Trump critic and journalist, especially amid broader tensions over immigration enforcement and federal actions. Lemon stated after his release, "I've spent my entire career covering the news. I will not stop now. I will not be silenced." Other stories we're tracking today. Former Deputy Director of the FBI Dan Bongino is returning to Rumble and Silverlock Media, where he will revive The Dan Bongino Show, the first episode of the show since March 14, 2025, when he began a nearly 10-month tenure with the Federal Bureau investigation drops today at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. The World Health Organization reported 2 cases of Nipah virus in an eastern Indian state on Thursday. Apple reported earnings that blew past Wall Street's expectations on Thursday thanks to sales of the iPhone 17. Revenue hit $143.8 billion for the quarter, up from $124.3 billion a year ago. Meanwhile, iPhone revenue reached $85.3 billion compared to analysts' expectation of $78.2 billion for the quarter. In a win for assimilation and a loss for multiculturalism, the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles will give driver's license exams only in English starting February 6th. More than 200 people were killed this week in a collapse at the Rubaya Coltan mine in eastern part of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. President Donald Trump slammed the Grammy Awards for their embrace of woke and anti-ass politics and threatened to sue Trevor Noah over a remark about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And Nick Shirley, the independent journalist known for exposing alleged ghost daycares in Minnesota that built for non-existent children, filmed an unannounced visit to a San Diego residential daycare on Saturday to expose fraud in the state of California. Happy birthday to singer Shakira, who turns 49, golfer Jack Nicklaus, who turns 86, and renowned Spanish operatic tenor Placido Domingo, who turns 85. Now for a look at what happened on this day in history. On this day in 1738, American Revolutionary War hero and founder of the Republic of Vermont, Ethan Allen, was born. On this day in 1793, King Louis XVI was executed by guillotine in Paris' Place de la Revolution after being convicted of treason and conspiring with foreign powers. On this day in 1887, Groundhog Day is celebrated for the first time at Gobbler's Knob in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. Speaking of Groundhog Day this year, Punxsutawney Phil has predicted 6 more weeks of winter. On this day in 1976, the supersonic Concorde jet began regular commercial service with simultaneous flights departing from Paris and London, cutting travel time between the East Coast and Europe by about 3.5 hours. On this day in 1977, President Jimmy Carter pardoned nearly all Vietnam War draft evaders. And on this day in 2020, the United States confirmed its first known case of COVID-19 in a Washington state resident who had returned from Wuhan, China, and what was the quiet start of the global pandemic's arrival on U.S. soil. Now for a look at what else is airing on today's. Now for a look at what's airing today on Essential Network. On Essential Network Movie Club, find out more about The Hurricane, the 1999 sports drama movie starring Denzel Washington as Reuben the Hurricane Carter. A new episode drops at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. On a serious premiere of Essential Network's Guide to the Interesting, take a trip with Peter Matthews as he takes you to Phoenix's Camelback Mountain. The series premiere drops at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And on the series premiere of How They Lied to Us, former CNN anchor turned talk show host Don Lemon has been arrested. How do media outlets react? How should the American people make sense of this news? Join David Thompson for his take and a rundown media bias associated with his arrest. The series premiere drops at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And finally, 56 years ago on Saturday, the world's first handheld scientific calculator was introduced. It retailed for $395, equivalent to about $3,000 in current dollars. We hope you enjoyed this newsletter. Our content is totally free, but if you really appreciate our work, you can support us by becoming a paid subscriber on Substack, monthly or annually. Please like, restack, subscribe to, and share Starting Point along with episodes of select podcasts with as many people as you know. Thanks for starting your morning with us. I'm Peter Matthews. Have a great Monday.